All right, welcome back to Sunrise Today. Yes, as you can see, those two gentlemen join us this morning to weigh in on the decision, the agreement, if you will, between the federal government and Labour. Honorable Uchenna Ekwe is a comrade. He is the head international relations of Nigeria Labour Congress. We also do have Mr. Segun Ajayi Kader, who is the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, man who joins us virtually from Lagos. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so yes, before we go into this, I'm going to have to ask both of you. I can't resist it. This CSU matter is all over the place. Mr. Kadir, I know he's our president at the moment. He sits on the seat, and so whatever happens to the president affects, I mean, everybody in the country may look to that. Well, you equally may have heard or read about this at some point in time, maybe while you're discussing or concerned man issues. This would have, perhaps you've seen it in some of the headlines. What do you make of all of this making the rounds? Maybe as a layman sitting from a distance and looking at how everything is playing out.
In particular, what are you talking about? I didn't quite get most of what.
The certificate matter concerning the president.
Oh, well, okay. It's not actually within my remit to talk about the president's certificate and so on, but I believe that these are election matters, and once there is politics in the air, quite a lot of things are thrown around, one trying to outwit the other. But I believe is safely in the courts. The legal process should be allowed to take its course. My only worry, really, about all of this is the fact that we need to get on with business of governance. So if the certificate issue should be left within the judicial space and let Nigeria get busy doing what is necessary. Our economy is in a very bad shape. And whether or not the president has certificate or he doesn't, he has produced it, I don't really bother myself with the fact. But the fact is that he's president and he should govern. There's a lot of expectation. The manufacturing space, for instance, is gasping for breath. So my major concern is that our economy should move and let the legal processes and the lawyers end their living and let Nigeria sort of progress with its activity.
Okay, so I hear you, but let me ask Honorable Ekwe as well. I mean, yes, the judiciary will do their thing, but I think they want us to be concerned because when they say justice must not just be done, it must be seen to have been done, including by business people as well. But you have also been in the House before where certain cases came up at that time. Does this in any way bother you, or you equally feel, look, let them sort it out, we will go on with labor matters? Okay, Mr. Kwe, pardon me. Okay, I think they say we'll have to adjust certain things with your mic, but we'll get your views out as well soon. But I'm going to go back to Mr. Kader at this point in time. Apologies for that. So, Mr. Kader, this agreement that has been reached with Labour and the presidency, I know there's supposed to be a private sector component, which we'll equally get on the show here today. But when this came through, because I also do know, remember, that man had raised certain issues for a while in terms of what needs to be done. So there are parts here where they spoke about the private sector, probably man too, but tell us, let's hear from you directly since you're here with us. Do you think that this sufficiently addresses the issues?
No, I think to a very large extent, what the agreement has done is to give some respite, some relief to the anxieties that most Nigerians have, not only the business community, but Nigeria as a whole. I mean, we had indicated, the organized private sector had indicated that a nationwide strike at this time will seriously complicate the precarious situation of the economy. And we are very happy that federal government and labor heeded the voice of reason to resolve the issues that they've had for a very long time, at least in the immediate time frame. But I do not believe that we are at the end of the road yet. I believe that all that we have is a 30 days window, an extension to a 30 days window for them to resolve the issues that they have in between them. If you look through all that was agreed, several based on what happens between now and either 13 days or between now and 30 days. That means depending on what they are able to continue to agree. But government has made some statements. It is expected that within this period, for instance, they are going to work out the modalities for fulfilling those promises that has been made. And what one will look forward to is that it should create a basis for a more permanent solution to the obvious challenges that not only businesses but Nigerians have. And I believe that this is what is needed to keep government on its toes. I do not believe that we need to get to this level. We need to raise everybody's BP, if I may use the word, or get the nation anxious about what will happen tomorrow before we arrive at this kind of resolution.
Okay.
To my mind, what government has agreed with now should have been agreed 2, 3, 4 weeks ago.
Okay, so let me bring it back to Comrade Ekwe. Before you go ahead and tell us if you believe this is sufficient basis for us to move forward. So while you go ahead and give us your perspective on what you were going to say about the initial question.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the discussion,
yep,
the issues of morality and all that came up. You see, even while the court is dealing with it, from parents, individuals, very concerned about how this matter comes to the end. Because the younger generation who are not even political, who are not playing politics, the non-political actors are watching. And the statement of how this ends will mean a whole lot for tomorrow. So I think both the judges, presidents, and the political actors should be wary of the fact that the fabrics of our moral values is under question. It's not about winning or losing. The fabrics of our moral values is under trial. And how this ends, and unfortunately, the trial is coming from the highest point. And it has drawn the attention of everybody. So how or how not it is resolved will leave so much beyond today. And I think everybody should be cautious of this. It's not simply about winning who wins the legal technicalities. It will be about our tomorrow. What are our values? There are some question marks that stays out there. Recently, there was this big case of the young girl about JAMB result, forged or not forged. There's a way this will end. It will be difficult, even for teachers in classroom, to question students who are cheating.
So now, to the labor matters. Do you think that the agreements reached between federal government and labor is sufficient grounds for us to be optimistic about getting a permanent solution, as Mr. Kader suggests?
Well, the question is a little tricky, being optimistic. I can only say that what we did is what in our consideration is what is attainable at this moment. But for us, yeah, some of those agreements, they are very critical, very silent issues that will play a role about what this agreement will be.
Which ones?
For example, many people might not pick it up. The joint monitoring of the rehabilitation process in the refineries. And why that means so much, as simple as it looks, is that if the rehabilitation of the local refining is not dealt with, and we start producing majority of our petroleum consumption locally, you will still be having the snippets of news that comes out every day. Oh, we are still subsidizing. Because the fact remains that if we don't refine locally and depend on 100% importation of petroleum products, the effect will still remain massive, which is there will be continuous pressure on Forex. Because those who import the petroleum will keep putting pressure on Forex. And as long as there is pressure on Forex, it's a vicious cycle, which means the further the Naira is devalued and the importation cost is high, the importers will try to mark up the price of petroleum. Then there will be a new cases of further increase in the pump price. So whatever that is attained now will be eroded.
In terms of the wage increase?
Yes, will be eroded. That's for us, this at the bottom of it. And that's why what we have done now is that we have submitted to I want to be careful about the word I will use, but we have been bamboozled by the political and the economic elites in Nigeria across political parties who believes that the regulation is medical cure-all. And this the regulation, whether it is based on importation or local manufacturing, is a medical cure-all. We are convinced that it can be. Because as long as we import this product, the importers will need to buy for an exchange. The more they buy, you put more pressure on the Naira. Naira will be further devalued. Then there will be a need to further increase the price of pump price to meet up the new cost of importation. This is very critical.
Well, I'm looking at this particular number 12, which is a point here. I think this is a statement of the Memorandum of Understanding reached between the federal government of Nigeria and Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress as a result of disputes arising from withdrawal of subsidy of the price of very long-headed, but I mean that's what it is. I mean, arising from the withdrawal of subsidy on the price of premium motor spirit on Monday, the 2nd of October, 2023. You referred to number 12, a joint visitation will be made to the refineries to ascertain their rehabilitation status. I have always thought that it was members of these unions who work in these refineries, and they should be able to give a very honest perspective as to what the status of work is. As a matter of fact, update Nigerians, because Nigerians had questioned before now the fact that people were getting paid. They had been paid for many years when refineries were not working. There have been questions as to what precisely were they doing there, and they're members of unions. So if indeed the federal government claims that work has started in some of these refineries and there's some rehabilitation going on, shouldn't there have been a very honest update from the people who have been working there? Why should there be a joint visitation, by both government and members of labor unions? Is it that they don't trust their own members?
No, as a matter of fact, what the question you asked answers the question itself. It is because the union members have disputed in the negotiation have disputed the report of the progress being made in rehabilitation. So it is that disagreement which is based on the fact that we got from our own members that this rehabilitation is not up to what is being said. And the reaction is, naturally, no, we are doing it. Then the middle ground is, okay, we will gently go and be sure that it's being done. So it's not as if the union have offered to say, wait a minute, we are not seeing this rehabilitation. We are not seeing this December deadline being achieved. Well, and the people are like, oh, what are you talking about? We are doing it. And it is on that basis we now said, okay, now there's a dispute on whether it is done or not done. Let it not be our report or government report. Let everybody be involved so that we can ascertain, is this work really, because there's a dispute now. So that one led that. If there is no dispute, it wouldn't have come up.
So are you saying that from what which one of the refineries are you going to be visiting? Is it the Port Harcourt refinery? Port Harcourt and Warri
Because
refinery?
that's where they said the rehabilitation is going on and will be ready by December.
You dispute that?
Yeah, we doubt about it being ready by December.
Okay. So for you right now, apart from this, because right now you have said that this agreement is for a 30-day period. Why 30 days?
Yeah. Again, it goes to the bottom of the fact of trust, a question of trust. Over the years, the unions have had cause not to trust agreements because agreements have been entered and the agreements have been reneged. And when, for example, if you go over the years, people felt even that the ASU people are troublemakers because they lack the patience to know that ASU keep asking, implement agreements we have reached. Now, we're given that window of 30 days. We know that there are some of the things that cannot be achieved in 30 days. But we want to see commitment. There are ones that can be achieved within 30 days. If those ones are implemented, it gives the basis to trust that, okay, other things could be done. But because we've come to a point that everybody finds difficult to trust what has been agreed, you can see for the first time, we're even talking about even taking to court.
This agreement?
Yes. Read the last.
Yeah, this memorandum shall be filed with the relevant court of competent jurisdiction within 1 week as consent judgment by the federal government.
Yes.
Consent judgment?
Yes, so that it will be, so that we can take on government if they don't implement.
Okay, it will be very interesting. What parts of this agreement are you afraid that government might not implement?
Well, no,
what parts of it do you think they might really?
No, we don't want to be afraid of anything, but we're afraid of everything.
No, because I'm looking at the fact that, the salary, initially the wage award, which people thought was 25,000 naira, we found out that it's been clarified, it's 35,000 naira.
Yes.
It's supposed to be for a period of 6 months and all that. It's not for a period of 6 months?
It's supposed to be until a new minimum wage is negotiated
and signed to law.
And signed into law.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So this is, yes, that's part of the clarification that has to be made.
Because that's very important to us.
Yeah.
Because that's why you have the second part. The government tried to contest, why? We said, okay, set up the committee. If the committee finishes, because we have had the minimum wage is due.
It's for federal government workers anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, even nationally, minimum wage law.
No, I mean
is
the 35,000 naira. The 35,000.
Yeah, the 35 for federal government workers. But the minimum wage is due to have a new minimum wage by April next year. And we've had experiences where it falls due and it takes another 6 months before it is resolved. So now we want to be sure so that we are not thrown aback Let something be there until it's finished. If we finish the review before the time, we know we're just waiting for the new commencement of the minimum wage implementation to start.
Let me come to Mr. Ajayi Kadir. You have, commended the federal government for some of the steps that it has taken and also Labour for some of the steps or the agreements that have been reached here. I'm looking at the fact that the federal government is suspending collection of value-added tax on diesel for 6 months, beginning from October, that's this month. I'm wondering how much of an effect is this going to have on the price of diesel and perhaps cost of production? Can you give us an idea of how this might positively affect manufacturers?
Okay, thank you. I believe this is part of what we had requested for in the past. We had asked that diesel is to us like an input in the production process, because right from the factory where diesel is required to power our machines, up until also when you have it to take your finished products to the market, and before then take the raw materials from either the ports or from wherever you are getting it to your factory. Diesel is required. You are aware that during the course of the year, we had suffered 2 or 3 major grid shutdowns, and manufacturers always will rely on diesel to power our generators. So all these are input costs that has negatively affected manufacturing volumes, our cost of production, and disrupted logistics. So if the price is reduced, as it will definitely be when you remove the VAT, it is going to assist in bringing down the cost of manufacturing, which also means that when these products get into the market, to come at a lower price, and this will help the buyers whose disposable income over the period had tended to dwindle. So I believe it is a positive thing, but like you rightly said, it is for a period of 6 months. And so what happens thereafter? The expectation is that we are going to have some other measures that are being taken by government. We should start to see the results so that the cost of production in general will be reduced. Power is just one of the challenges that we have. There are several others to which solutions are sought in order to bring the cost of manufacturing down. You are aware that manufacturing competitiveness has been constrained over a very long period of time, and this has affected manufacturing performance. So I believe that this step is a positive one, and that at the end of the day, we should begin to look beyond the 6 months that this will last, and even during this period to have complementary measures that will generally promote manufacturing and allow the sector to contribute to job creation, to innovation and building the national wealth, even pay taxes to government. So I believe that it's the right thing to do, and it's one of the major victories in this agreement between Labour and government. It is also very important that we work on the refineries, as the Labour rep said. It is critically important that, and that I agree with him, is going to be the more permanent solution to these lingering challenges, because so long as we import fuel, there is no way you are going to guarantee that the prices will not go up. And it is important that the refineries we have is long overdue, that they should start working. So I believe if all of these are taken together, we might begin to resolve the issues in the energy sector that has combined with other challenges to limit not only manufacturing performance, but the economy in general.
All right. Okay, Mr. Gade, just, pardon me, we need to just go to a quick break, but we will be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. And we still have with us Honorable Uchenna Ekwe, Head International Relations, Nigeria Labour Congress, who joined us in our Abuja studio. And we also have Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, the Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Of course, we're reviewing the agreement between the federal government and Labour, which has a significant outcome in what would have become a nationwide strike that would have taken off yesterday, but has now been suspended, albeit for 30 days. Mr. Kadri, let me come to you now. I wonder, I didn't quite hear the enthusiasm in your response to Marquez's last question about the suspension of VAT on diesel and its impact in the production and services of manufacturers. But also, as a follow-up to that, did you expect a follow-up on the promise of the administration in President Tinubu's July broadcast about 75 billion naira credit to high-yielding manufacturing companies? Did you expect a follow-up to that in that speech? And was it, getting the short end of the stick for manufacturers when that did not, surface in the speech about, what would have been a significant policy of government on making the work of manufacturers, the business climate for manufacturers, more conducive? Did you miss that? Was it something that the association expected?
Okay, I think right from the time that Mr. President made that announcement, I believe you referred to the 75 billion for a minimum of 75 manufacturing industries and maybe 125 billion to MSME and so on. But in particular, the one for the manufacturers. We have since actually made suggestions to government as to how we believe that this could be judiciously expended. My understanding, what I hear is that government is working out the modalities for giving that incentive, so to say, to manufacturers. But in the real sense of it, 75 billion naira to 75 manufacturers. MAN has 2,500 members. And as you would expect, more than 70% of those are small and medium-scale industries. If you are going to spend 75 billion for those, I'm sure your guess is as good as mine as to how far-reaching it is. But we did indicate at that time that it is a step in the right direction, in the sense that manufacturers need competitive credit facilities. That is the ones that will allow you to operate your businesses, be able to make profit, pay taxes, and not have the burden of repayment. So as an indication of what direction government was going, as his government, this present administration just came in when it was announced, one was expecting that, yes, this facility is there, it could be channeled through maybe a special purpose bank like the BOI that will not escalate the interest rate that would be expected. We didn't expect, and I think government mentioned it, the president mentioned it, that it would be no more than 9%. So we believe, we understand that the process is on for determining how it is going to be expended, and we look forward to an expansion of this, of the volume that will be available for manufacturers to be able to take. But I think a more lasting solution will have been preferred. The sector is desirous of adequate and effective credit facility. The lending rate in the market now is...
Mr. Kadri, pardon me there. The president said at the time that, that the expenditure will be between July and March next year. And we're already in October. If the process is still ongoing, when will it kickstart? And then there's a specific mention of 125 billion naira for MSMEs, which is apart from the 75 billion naira for high-yielding manufacturers. So if neither of this has, started, when will it start?
Yeah, it's worrisome, and I don't speak for government, but I'm just telling you what we had. Soon after the ministers came in, I believe that that process is on, but it is slow. We would have expected that by now it will be out, and that manufacturers and MSMEs will have started to enjoy, the facility. But I believe that government is sorting itself out. It is important that they also take their time to identify those that will be given the facilities so that, and this is a political environment, it is not seen as political largesse, and we should clearly identify those that are manufactured. As a matter of fact, MAN has offered that we have our list of members, we have their profile, we have their requirements, we have where they are located, and there is a ready bank. We have indicated in our memo to government that this is a bank of industry has participated in so many loan facilities, special purposes that have been made by government and have been well delivered. So the bank should be, I would advise that that they be given the responsibility to give those facilities. It is better late than never. I think now government should, particularly with the agreement with labor, government should expedite action to make sure that these facilities are available. But my critical point here, which I don't want to miss, is that even the 125 billion and the 75 billion will not address the credit crisis for the manufacturing sector. We need a more permanent solution. We need a deliberate attempt, for instance, by the CBN to ensure that loan to the sector is prioritized and is given at rates that we allow it. The existing 26 to 24% or 24% lending to the manufacturers is not helpful and is responsible for low manufacturing performance. So I'm not blown away by the 75 billion and the 125 billion. Yes, it is something to go by, but I believe it should be indicative of what needs to be done. And I think that's the direction that we should go. Those with whom we compete, either domestically and internationally, have maybe a maximum of like 5%, 6%. You can't compete in that kind of environment. So I think this is a solution, is a drop in the ocean, if I might say. And I think that a government, probably if they succeed with this one, it will create more appetite for expansion. I mean, that's why we gave it a lot of credit. But it doesn't mean that it's the solution that the sector seeks.
Well, Mr. Kadri, Mr. Jai Kadri, I'd like to stay with you for a bit. In that agreement that the president signed, where the federal government signed with labor, one of the issues raised by your colleague in the organized private sector yesterday, when we had this conversation with him, was that it seemed that the agreements, the conversations, the labor relations with the FG didn't particularly factor in the organized private sector, in that when that pronouncement was made for 35,000 naira salary award for federal workers, state governments are urged to do the same, and private sector workers are also encouraged to do the same. Do you agree with him, that's Mr. Smart Oyerinde, that there needs to be an agreement with the federal government, with labor, on how they engage the government at various levels to factor in the private sector?
Yes, of course, we agree very much with the private sector of Nigeria. The sector, this body is comprised of MAN, NECA, NASI, NASIMA, and NASMI. And we have indicated that it is very important for us to take into consideration the organized private sector, the private sector, because we are the most impacted by all of this. And in terms of the wage, even though there's talk about minimum wage, most private sector operators, former private sector operators already pay more than the minimum wage. And in terms of giving an award, many of our members, if not most of our, giving what is now generally called palliatives, following the withdrawal of subsidy, floating of the naira rates, and the general unease in the market. But it is very important for the sector to be at the table, because we have a stake even in ensuring that the refineries work. We have a stake in ensuring that there's mass transit. We have a stake in the stable price of diesel and a reduced price of diesel. Virtually all that was agreed with Labour has implication for the private sector. So we should be part of that process, we agreed. And when my colleague Wale spoke yesterday, he spoke for the organized private sector of Nigeria as our member. So I think that is what government needs to do. And we should, I mean, we expect and we've had indications that we are going to be part of this process when, particularly within this 1 month window, where issues are expected to take shape in terms of arriving at a more permanent solution to the crisis.
Let me ask Honorable Ekwe this question. I mean, you were responding the other time to questions around whether or not the refineries are going to work one way or the other. There are a good number of people who would wonder, of course, in response to the question, I think it was by Mark, where you said you doubted whether or not, or rather you doubt whether or not the refineries will be able to kick in. But a good number of people will wonder how come, given that it's your members that work in the refineries all over the country. And some people will also recall that they have been earning salaries even though those refineries haven't been working. So if the refineries are to work by the time that the president or the federal government has made this pronouncement, what are the must-do? And how can Labour, being the ones who work in these refineries, ensure that that happens for the benefit of Nigerians? Honorable Ekwe, that's for you.
No, boy. Okay. Well, I attempted that question when your colleague raised it before. First, yes, the workers, our colleagues work there. And let me use this analogy. You work in channels. If the boss of channels does not provide the microphones, notwithstanding you know you need a microphone, you cannot work. So even when the workers know that this rehabilitation and this work is going to work, the decision of bringing even the equipment, giving instruction to even install them, is not in their hands. It lies in the hand of somebody who is managing the system. The workers can only say, we are ready to fix this, but they cannot go to the store and collect the equipment, especially they have been bought, and they are not the ones that will approve the money to buy it. And that's why they've raised concerns and said, comrades, look, these promises, we are not seeing it on ground. And the people in the authorities said, no, we are doing something. And based on that disagreement, we now say, okay, let's jointly, of course, it will be led by those workers there who understand the technicalities. But say, yes, we are supposed to fix A, B, C, D here, but it's not even available. Even how we came to even the issue of rehabilitation was the information we have from the inside that the things are not working.
So, Mr. Uchenna, how do we reconcile the reservation?
We do have to thank both of you tremendously for your time here this morning. Comrade Uche Ekwe is the head International Relations, Nigeria Labour Congress. We've also had Shagun Ajayi, Director General Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right, so we will be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.